Hi, I'm Shayna.
And I'm Tracy, and we are the creators of the Pump and Dump Show. We are moms, but we were women first. And in this podcast, we explore what it's like to be a woman who also happens to be a mom.
Before we were moms, we were women. Before we were moms, we were chillin'. We were pumping and dumping. We're talking about something. This is the Pump and Dump Podcast.
Our special guest today is Sarah Tyler. She is a family nurse practitioner. She practices functional medicine at an integrative medical practice here in Denver called the Sound Clinic. Full disclosure, she has been my doctor for years and has brought me back from the brink more times than I
We could
care.
actually do a whole podcast episode about
Tracy.
Tracy's health.
Here's when Tracy cried in my office for this. Here's when Tracy came and crying for this. Here's when she came in with the flu and shut down the entire office. And yeah,
That was impressive.
that was
yes.
you were pregnant. Anyway, so Sarah is a wealth of information, and we thought we would have her on to talk about our hormones, which nobody really understands, stress,
And what functional medicine is.
and
'Cause
what the hell is functional medicine.
yeah.
Even I don't know that.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having me. So, functional medicine is sort of the idea of supporting the foundations of health. And when there is a symptom that comes up, sort of looking for the root cause and digging deeper.
Okay. So does that include actual medicine, like as we know it from like the FDA, or is it?
So, I would say there are plenty of cases where medicine is useful. The foundations of health that should be supported first would be things like getting adequate sleep, moving your body, managing your stress, eating whole foods sort of nutrition.
No, Sarah, none of those things.
And well, so those are the basics, and then from there you can always dig deeper if fixing those things don't solve the problem.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So
Yeah.
somebody comes to you and they're like, I have been diagnosed with this autoimmune disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you say, how are you sleeping? How are you eating?
Totally. So, the cause of autoimmunity is unknown supposedly, but there's several theories. And so gut health is super important when it comes to the development of autoimmunity. And so we would definitely, what is the person putting in their body? Are they pooping? What is the balance of the microbes in the gut? And so that would be an avenue to discuss. Nutrition would be huge. So like an anti-inflammatory protocol.
Are
with-
all autoimmune, I have so many questions. Sorry. I'm just going to ping you with questions.
please.
Are all autoimmune disorders inflammation disorders?
I would say that inflammation is a component. It's essentially your immune system overreacting. And so
So therefore,
That's what
autoimmune.
inflammation is your immune system overreacting.
yes, well, so that's autoimmunity is your immune system is acting inappropriately, essentially. So, for example, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, you develop antibodies towards your thyroid gland, and it causes it to have low production, and so it's an inflammatory disorder caused by an overactive immune system.
Wow,
And
your
so-
immune system's just being a dick,
Right.
basically.
Which is basically everyone's these days. I mean,
It seems that way.
is everyone inflamed? Is that what we've all decided? No one has good gut health, and we're all inflamed.
I know. I said to Tracy when we were traveling, and I generally have diarrhea when we're traveling, and I was just like, God, I haven't had a normal shit in like months. And she's just like, that's inflammation. I'm like, well, sure.
Yeah, it does feel like sort of like a buzzword in that we think of it as like the root cause of all chronic illness, essentially. But again, it's sort of break down the foundations of health and figure out. I'm like an optimist, so I want to think that our bodies can sort of do the best thing
Heal
for
themselves.
ourselves, and so you give the basic supports and hopefully sort of stop the damage that has been done.
Right.
So if
Or
you
halt
come
it.
in, so if you come in with like a known, not, I mean, autoimmune is very ubiquitous.
There's like 400 different autoimmune diseases.
Right.
It's insane.
So say you come
Gosh.
in and you have, I mean, like
A cold.
a cold
Cold, yeah.
or a wart. Like what,
Yeah.
you know, no, I'm just thinking like common things you go to your general practitioner
Right.
for traditionally.
A yeast
Totally.
infection.
A yeast infection. What do you do?
Yeah, so for a yeast infection, I do use medication a lot of the time just because it's a lot shorter duration and it's really effective unless a person has had recurrent yeast infections, which is something that we see a lot. And then
Inflammation.
What are you eating?
Sugar.
Stop
and
eating all that
it's like,
bread.
stop feeding the yeast in your body with carbs and
Right.
processed foods.
Don't
they
sit
get
on
so
that
happy
dirty
for
muffin.
those things.
Here's
So,
a
yeah.
yeast infection
So-
question since
Okay.
we have a nurse practitioner here. So what I've always been told, there's a battle going on down there between the bacteria and the yeast, correct?
Yeah, so it's like a disruption in your natural flora, and so that can happen as a result of taking something like an antibiotic. Like a lot of women come to me and they're like, "Oh, I have sinusitis. I've had, a headache and teeth pain for 15 days, and I really need to take an antibiotic to get rid of it." And sometimes that's necessary. And then, they're like, "Oh, and by the way, every time I take an antibiotic, I get a yeast infection." And so it's like,
Got it.
So then you have to
So
find
it's a
another
disruption.
solution.
So a lot of the time I provide the patient with 2 prescriptions. But
Monostat and
typically when that happens, they need more probiotic support. They need less sugar in their diet.
Oh. So this is why I ask, because Tracy has made me stop using most normal products. like
Yeah.
I use natural deodorant now.
Awesome.
And my soap products are like the refillable, all
Very
natural.
clean.
But they're I for years and years, Yellow Dial antibacterial soap was all I ever used.
Okay.
And I feel like there was a very delicate balance to keep down there between the
Totally.
bacteria and the yeast.
Oh.
yeah, that could have the same effect. It could essentially
Disrupt.
disrupt,
Oh,
get
the
rid of all
dial?
the good flora, the good bacteria that protects you from things like yeast thriving. And
But I'm saying on the dial, I never had any issues because
you
my
didn't.
body was, whatever
In
war was
check.
going on down there, it was like used to the Yellow Dial.
Now you do?
A
A little yeasty?
I wouldn't describe myself as yeasty. I feel like the battle's being won by the yeast.
You're
Okay.
really talking in metaphors today.
Why? It is
I'm
a battle
I
going
just
on down
like
there.
am picturing these little
Jousting.
tiny
Listen,
things jousting.
Our listeners are moms with vaginas.
So you're
Yeah.
saying, so Sarah's saying that the dial can disrupt because it's kind of like just like bleaching your cooch, and you're saying you're saying that
You're saying it kept it in
you're
check.
you're saying the bleach
I think it
is-
did keep it in check. I'm feeling less balanced using your woo-woo soaps.
That's interesting. So, the other thing that can sort of occur down there is related more to bacterial overgrowth. So, bacterial vaginosis is when there's too much bacteria. So, perhaps that's more of what you're sensing,
What's that from?
and just an imbalance. So, an overgrowth of bacteria versus an overgrowth.
I don't like the word
of
overgrowth.
Oh, but
in
yeast
reference
is
to
okay.
they're both not okay.
I know I'm not okay with
fungus
any of
among us.
this. So how do you? Okay, Sarah, what soap do you use for your cooch so that you don't
Let's talk about it.
disrupt the battle?
Yeah. So it's not recommended to use anything like douches or scented soaps. I think that a gentle soap would be good. I don't want to say any brands, but
What about
Why?
like?
I like Native, which is like
Oh, I've been using their
unscented.
deodorant.
They make soap.
Yeah, and they make
Oh.
soap, and I use their deodorant too.
Yeah, so it didn't work for me for like, remember?
Yeah. Wait,
Tracy's
Native?
like, I remember.
Because you're stinky.
I was my transition into native. Now it's working.
Oh, I'm happy for you.
Thank
you were
I'm
really
happy
struggling.
for you.
It's a really fascinating thing that happens when you switch from commercial deodorants to like the natural ones.
Uh-huh.
It's like your body, like
It just
something comes out
Yeah.
and it's really bad, and then it gets better.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, native doesn't work for me, but
It might if you gave it long enough because
it might.
it took a while for me. Like literally the
I
past.
like my crystal spray. Everyone
know.
everyone refuses. It works so
I
good.
refuse. I don't refuse.
The only thing that stinks is the bat suit that I wear on stage, but that's just because of sweat. Okay.
That's it. That's funny.
Okay, yeah, that's what we called my jumpsuit after a while cuz
Okay.
Anyway.
Thanks for the yeast info. I appreciate it.
So one thing I've been talking about with friends and Shane and I've been talking about is that even in our 40 and after having children and me with every reproductive problem possible, I still don't fucking understand my ensigns and certainly my hormones. Like I never knew until I didn't have a uterus that there was more than one kind of estrogen. And I still don't understand why or what that does or why I need any of it.
Yes.
And I want to talk
complex.
about like I don't think a lot of women understand their bodies in a way that helps them support themselves. So talk to
Totally.
us about like hormone balance just as
Mhm.
women, not even with, fertility issues or anything else. Like
Yeah.
what's the deal?
So hormones, there are so many of them, right? They're chemical messengers in our bodies that are produced by an organ and then do something somewhere else. And so when you think about hormones, you have to consider thyroid hormones. You have to think of adrenal hormones like cortisol and DHEA. And then our female hormones, of course, are sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, which all three of those have various roles that are very important. I will say, like to a case like yours, you can't just like look at the hormone levels and like have the total picture. You can, if someone's not feeling well when their hormones are balanced, then it could be a metabolism issue. And so, like you mentioned, the three different types of estrogen, estriol, which is E1, estradiol, which is E2, and estrone is E1, estradiol is E2, and estriol is E3. They all do various things, and some are better than the others. So, for example, based on your genes and your environment, you have a particular way that you metabolize your estrogen, and it can go down a pathway that's safe and healthy and protective from like a cancer standpoint, or it can go down a pathway that's harmful from a prolific standpoint that could lead to like uterine fibroids, fibrocystic changes in your breast, that sort of thing. And so from a functional medicine approach, you really want to do things once you feel like you've supported those foundations of health that I mentioned.
Can I interrupt really quick?
Yep.
So if you have the bad estradiol or
Yes.
estriol, and would that show up if you just got a panel of hormones taken? And would you show up as balanced?
No, not so. So estradiol isn't necessarily bad. It's just really strong. But you have three different metabolites of the estrogens, and so it's like the 2, 4, and the 16 hydroxyl pathways. And the 2 is considered the good. The 16 is considered the bad, and the 4 is considered the ugly. So that would take an additional lab test to actually see how your estrogen's being metabolized.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, how would you possibly know that this was going on?
That's an entirely different test. You can look at all of your levels. They can be within normal ranges, or they could not be. But once you sort of recognize that things are within normal ranges, people are not overdoing, alcohol and caffeine. Those things can lead to poor estrogen metabolism.
What do you consider like
stress.
overdoing?
Yes, tell us.
Define
tell us.
overdoing.
Yeah. So I think it depends. Again, it's like based on your genetics. If you metabolize caffeine really quickly and you don't have negative consequence from having a cup of coffee, then you can likely tolerate several servings. And caffeine is healthy for a lot of people. It makes us sharper. It increases the neurochemicals that give us motivation and drive and helps us to focus. And so, but for some people that are slow metabolizers of caffeine, it can just stick around in the body, lead to anxiety, insomnia. And so really, a big piece of functional medicine is sort of meeting the person, the individual, sort of who they are, and not generalizing any one person.
But this is bad.
Every single
This is
person could
good.
be different. For an example, when you think about hormonal birth control, a lot of women are on it, right? But to prevent pregnancy, because we don't have that many alternatives. I mean, we have the non-hormonal IUD, we have condoms, diaphragms. Like, who wants to use that?
I use a method called praying.
Yeah, right. And so that's
The pull-out
probably
pray.
maybe 20% effective for pregnancy prevention. So we don't have a lot of options, and so a lot of times women are placed on hormonal birth control, and based on their sort of underlying genetics, whatever's going on in their lifestyle, they can react well to it, they can metabolize it well, or it can go bad. I've never been able to tolerate birth control
Really?
that's hormonal from mainly a mood and a weight perspective. I'll gain like 30 pounds if I take birth control.
Interesting.
That was one time I was in your office crying, was when my gynecologist tried to put me on birth control to settle down whatever was growing, and I thought I was going to burn down the city. I came in, I was like, I am not okay. I have to stop taking it.
And I think it's related to the way that we metabolize those hormones. And you know, birth control are not bioidentical hormones; they're synthetic, non-bioidentical hormones, and so
And they're just sort of
not correct
prescribed for
some
you,
people.
right? Like you just don't really. It's like, oh, just take this one because everyone seems to like it, but there's not a really in-depth analysis to match.
And there's like, there are some nuances when prescribing. Like you can prescribe ones that are like lower androgenic so that it could, facilitate clear skin. I try to have, if someone's going to use a hormonal oral contraceptive, for example, I like to use the lower dose ones. And then some people, though, will have breakthrough bleeding, and that can be really annoying. And then we have to sort of boost from there.
Mm.
And so, again, it's just like an individual thing.
So balancing these hormones could actually be directly related to other symptoms like sleeplessness,
Totally.
stress levels.
Absolutely.
And this is why they're so important.
Nutrition, right? And so, so when you think about forming hormones to begin with, you have to have cholesterol, because that's sort of it's all of the hormones are formed from cholesterol.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
So cholesterol is important for that reason. You have to, whenever you have stress, it sort of shifts things so that it could cause your progesterone to drop. So when you hear about these women that are like, don't eat and they're exercising like crazy and they lose their period, it's because they lose their progesterone.
Okay.
And so there's just so many various scenarios. But if you're sleeping well and you're eating a balanced diet with whole foods that are, the colors of the rainbow, lots of healthy fats, adequate protein, you're managing your stress, you're doing something in the form of like spiritual connection or connecting with other humans. And I think that, you have a pretty decent foundation.
But moms are connected with other humans.
Yeah, connected to other attached.
And the stress is not going down.
Yes.
So how do you,
Totally.
What if all you're doing is with humans and that's just ruining your life?
And so there's a ton of different integrative perspectives that you can take when stress is really hard to manage and it's something that you're like doing all the right things and still like feeling anxiety and still feeling sleeplessness. One of my favorite herbs, I'm just going to put it out there, is ashwagandha root. It's an adrenal adaptogen. It's very nourishing and it sort of moderates your stress hormones. So it sort of gives you exactly what you need. If you're really tired, it can sort of bring you up in the form of energy. If it can also facilitate a restful sleep. I think it's really awesome in the fact that for women or for mothers that are feeling overwhelmed, it's sort of, I would say, makes the filter holes a little smaller. So like things that are coming at you are not necessarily getting to you and penetrating and causing you to feel reactive, but sort of bouncing off a little bit. I think the mechanism with that is probably through serotonin, but that's one of my favorite herbs to use.
How do you suggest people take it?
It's in my Nutrafol.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So one of the health trends that's pretty common right now is to put adaptogens in different drinks.
In your coffees and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool. I do, and I love the fact that you can like have a beverage that's like good for you, right? Versus like always.
Can you
like,
put it in like your drink?
Can you make an
Well, you
ashwagandha and tonic?
I think so. Yeah. I think that you might have disrupted sleep from the alcohol,
Sure.
and so it might not. You might not get the best health benefit. But I just think that it's fun and it's cool. I don't know if the doses are at adequate levels to where you're actually
Right. Well, that's
like-
what I'm saying. Like, how much do you really need to take of that?
yeah. So
And can we just talk about the word adaptogen? Because
Yeah.
for a long time I was convinced that that's a made up word by a
Yeah.
company called Isogenics.
right,
They really,
Yeah.
They
really
really
nailed
pushed
it.
the adaptogen, and I was like, "What the fuck is an adaptogen?" If there is
Yeah.
ever a word that sounded like a made up word, it's adaptogen.
But now it's like the word of the 2019.
it is, and there it's
What is
such
an
a little
adaptogen?
buzzword. But it's so the idea is that it sort of modulates things. So if something is too high, like cortisol, like you wake up and your heart's pounding,
Okay,
and
what's
you're breaking a
cortisol?
sweat. Cortisol is the stress hormone.
We're going to talk about this more, but just so cortisol
Yeah.
is a stress hormone.
It's a stress hormone. It goes up so that you can sort of run from the bear that's attacking you. And so if it's elevated and it sustains, you end up feeling poorly eventually. We used to call it adrenal fatigue.
Okay.
But the way that we think of that is different now. We think of it more of a down regulation from the brain to protect ourselves.
Mm.
Like this person has been being chased by a bear for 3 weeks. We're going to like lower the output to the messages that to tell the adrenals to produce more hormones so that the person can sleep.
Yeah, that person needs a nap.
Yes, that
basically.
person needs a nap. And so it's not the adrenals pooping out like we used to think. It's actually a protective
Oh.
mechanism from the brain so that we can rest and regenerate.
So it's directly related to anxiety then,
Yeah, and fatigue.
and inflammation. Is it directly?
Perhaps it's got to have. It's more than likely inflammatory cytokines will result as a secondary to being chased by a bear.
Okay. So
Some
okay.
level
So
of inflammation.
so back to adaptogen. So
Yeah.
it helps raise your
So-
cortisol.
So
Lower.
it will help lower it if it's too high and sort of lift it if it's too low. That's the idea.
Of an adaptogen, which
Yes.
comes in the form of herbs.
Isogenics.
I don't even
Shit
know
you buy at a
isogenic-
matcha store for
Yeah,
$20.
yeah. Exactly. I love the brand Gaia for ashwagandha.
Okay.
It's a farm in North Carolina, really beautiful farm. I hope I get to visit one day. But their product is they
If you're
do
listening.
ashwagandha root. Yeah, exactly. Ashwagandha root alone. So a lot of the adrenal support will have like rhodiola, luthera, ashwagandha root, licorice, like all these different things. And I'm kind of like a purist in that way. I think that,
It doesn't take. So I heard that you turmeric
Curculex,
does
turmeric.
not work unless it's combined with black pepper. Is that true?
Yeah, they have found that to be the case. And so pretty much any turmeric supplement is going to have that in there.
So
And some people have sensitivities to that.
So
So that makes it
ashwagandha
tricky.
though can be just taken solo.
Yes.
And like the Gaia, it's a capsule.
It's a capsule. It's like black. You take it twice a day. It's
Okay.
lovely.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know. All right. So let's go back to let's talk about testosterone because
Okay.
I'm gonna be real
Yeah.
honest. I didn't realize that we had testosterone.
Women?
Yeah. Did you know that?
I think I knew that.
Testosterone is really important for a lot of things
Isn't it
in
for
your
men
sex
and
drive?
women.
Sex.
Yeah.
Sex drive, mental clarity, muscle mass. I think that if people are really deficient in testosterone, they feel achy, like in their joints. That's one of the things that it helps with. Bone strength, actually, is another thing that testosterone is good for.
Is osteoporosis still a thing?
Yes.
I feel like
No, everyone's backs just got better.
no. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like there's so much
Yeah.
knowledge now about bone strength and things like that. I almost feel like my great grandma had it, and it was like something that happened to people before they knew about their health or eating properly. But
Oh.
I could be.
So osteoporosis, the risk factors, there can be a genetic component. If someone is a smoker, that will definitely increase their risk.
Right.
And then typically it's related to estrogen deficiency. So women that are postmenopausal, we monitor their bone density.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So testosterone, how do you know if you're low if you're low,
Low
that's
T.
when
When you have low
Low
T.
T.
low T.
Low T. Yeah.
You see
So
a
it's-
commercial that tells you you have low T, and
So
you order
there's-
whatever the fuck is on that commercial.
Yes. There's 3 ways really to measure all hormones. Serum, like a blood draw. You can look at a person's urine, and then saliva. Most commonly, we use serum. It's not the most accurate, but it's sort of, we can draw conclusions from the levels that way. And then there are different ways to support testosterone. Weight bearing, exercise, and sleep and stress reduction. Supporting the adrenal glands is an indirect way to support
And by
the
weight bearing, you mean
testosterone.
like with like squats on your back, like squats with like weight on your
Squats on your
like-
back.
I mean, sorry,
Strength
That doesn't even
training.
make sense.
strength training,
Yes.
Oh,
like lifting weights.
Yeah, but like low, not like bench
like-
pressing your body weight or
Oh,
anything.
okay. Not like everyone
well,
doesn't
they
have to go
say.
join.
I mean, they say as you age. I'm saying they, as in I've heard this before. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That as you age, no matter how much cardio you do or how much other exercise, lifting weights becomes like imperative to your health.
I would say yes. I think that, low weights, repetition, maintaining your muscle mass is really important.
Why?
For the prevention of disease, the prevention of injury
Yeah.
specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, there's been so many
Stretching
times
and
that I've like.
strengthening.
I feel like I've been walking and twisted in a way, like, down a path with my kids or hiking or whatever. And literally thought to myself, if I didn't work out like I do,
I would have injured
I
myself.
would have just broken my knee,
Yeah.
And so as
Yeah,
we age, like,
exactly.
And so, yeah, someone told me once that like just doing, that's why I said squats, because someone told me like squats actually.
like wall squats. Or
Yeah, wall squats are just good old fashioned squats, like especially for men, like increases testosterone by doing the squat.
really?
That's what I heard. I've
I
always
think
thought
it's
about
probably through the mechanism of
Fact
like,
or
muscle
fiction?
mass.
Or is it just because the dude is doing it and it's kind of like he's thrusting and it's just like stimulating?
He's like
he has high
strong and
testosterone.
virile.
Right.
All right, so how do women so how do you support your testosterone then? Like, okay, so can all of this be helped with food, or do we have to really,
Buy all these supplements, which cost a lot of money.
or do we all
Totally.
just have to hit the gym?
A combination of all of those in moderation.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's herbal things that you can do to increase testosterone. We use DHEA sometimes, which is an adrenal hormone and a precursor to testosterone, to sort of, some women can convert it and it will make their testosterone levels more robust. Other times, they'll like get acne and grow hair, and it's not
Because those are
good.
the that's if you have too much.
That's what's in my Nutrafol too, the DHEA, I think.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear more
Oh,
about the
let's
Shall I
have
grab the
Sarah. Yeah, let's
Nutrafol?
have Sarah
Okay.
look at it.
Okay.
So with women who have a low sex drive, which we talk about a lot on the
Yes.
pod, should they look to testosterone deficiency
Definitely.
as a problem rather than they're just not turned on by their man?
Yes, it's very hormone driven.
And how do you
Absolutely.
go and do that? How do you go about doing that? Can you just go do you go to your gynecologist? Do you have to find a functional medicine doctor? Like, what's the?
It just depends. Traditionally, I don't know how many doctors would like want to draw hormone levels, and it might just be because they wouldn't know what to do when they got the levels back and how to interpret it. So it'd have to be someone with, education in that area and willingness and open-mindedness.
Because I've heard like women, I mean, you and I've talked about it, like get pellets in the butt of
Yes.
testosterone, and then like they cannot stop having sex.
Please stop and go back
No,
and
yeah,
explain.
I haven't talked to you about this.
I
Yeah.
think I would remember pellets in the butt.
Yeah,
So Dr. Lindsay and
Archie's like, I
Sonia
can't. Yeah,
at Stone Clinic both do pellet placement. Essentially,
Oh, that's what it's called.
yes, and it isn't in the butt. It's just under the skin of the surface of the skin of your buttocks.
Your
So
glute.
like in your upper
glute.
No, I don't
glute
understand what you're
thigh.
saying.
It's not in the muscle. It's just like right underneath the skin.
It's like inserted like a chip.
Oh, not in
It's
your
not up-
butthole.
Oh gosh, no.
Yeah,
I'm
that's what
sorry.
I was trying to
Jeez.
clarify.
Oh,
It's not like a plug.
It's a
'cause
pellet
it wouldn't
plug.
stay in there. It just comes.
Well, I
right
thought it was
out.
like a suppository, like it just
oh no,
disintegrated.
no,
or
like it's like a
something.
shot in the butt, like the butt cheek.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All right.
it's inserted like underneath the skin of your butt cheek, and it's a slow release. So you have like this steady state of testosterone, And for a lot of women, it's like a game changer.
For sex.
For sex drive, yes, and for orgasm, and for muscle mass, motivation, mood. Testosterone, the other thing, it sort of acts like a tricyclic antidepressant. So a lot of women that are very like tearful and just feeling like emotionally crying at the drop of a hat, it's usually testosterone.
So where do we
Interesting.
buy that? Where can
You
you put it on?
don't.
Can you put it on me, Trace?
Can I shoot you in the butt with?
Did you bring some here today, Dr. Sarah?
I have a friend of a friend who started getting it, and she's like, I literally can't stop. It's all I could do not to jump my husband in the car in the driveway.
Yeah,
Like
so
I can't even
sometimes,
get out of the
like-
car without wanting to.
Have you had it?
No, I haven't, but a lot of the providers in our office have tried it. I will say that sometimes the dose can be, if you're like climbing the walls, wanting to like take down strangers in the street, you need to lower the dose.
Well, sure.
But how do you
Yeah.
lower it if it's stuck in your butt? You have to
It's
wait.
in
You
your
have to
butt.
write it out and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
hope you don't like commit adultery.
like, yeah, like
They'll
have-
literally write it out. You have to literally write it out.
Wow. How
I
often do you
know.
have to get it inserted?
every 3 to 4 months, depending on like how much you need.
God, I'd give up facials in a second.
I know, but cautionary tale. So we've talked about it for me because I have no hormones inside me because of my hysterectomy.
So testosterone and DHEA doesn't. So you can not have any ovaries or uterus and still make testosterone.
Oh,
'cause
you
some
can?
is produced in your adrenals.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So postmenopausal women, some of them have very healthy testosterone levels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
But then we tried testosterone and I didn't like it. Like not
Yeah.
even in my butt, just taking it.
yeah.
in your butt.
Was it a trochee or was it?
No,
cream?
I'm scared of the trochee. I
was
did the
cream.
lotion, I did the cream, and then I started thinking I was going to burn down America
Yeah.
again.
And again, it's
Again?
just like everyone's so different.
Well, my point is not to talk about me. My point is that you do have to find a doctor or a provider who understands balance. It's not a one size fits all.
No, absolutely not. Every single person is totally different. And sometimes people just don't tolerate them well. I have a lot of women where I'd like to sort of get their hormone levels up to like an average dose, and they just have side effects from it for whatever reason. And so, we support them in different ways.
And can you have and I also know, so back to progesterone, that helps you sleep, right?
Yeah, it's very calming. It when you take it orally, it's converted into the liver and sort of increases GABA, that relaxing neurochemical in our brains.
So can you just take that if you're insomniac, or do you have to balance it with your other stuff, or can you just start taking progesterone?
So you can take progesterone by itself, especially, if you're a young woman that's has plenty of estrogen. You need adequate levels of progesterone to sort of balance the estrogen. Estrogen is not something you want to take by itself without progesterone, but you can take progesterone without estrogen.
Gotcha. And can you take testosterone?
Without
I feel like there's going to be 300 people knocking on the doors of the sound clinic asking for the pellet.
But this has to be prescribed by
So yeah, testosterone is a controlled substance,
and
actually,
progesterone too.
and we only prescribe bioidentical hormone, so it's the exact sort of replica of what your body makes. So it can't be interpreted as some sort of foreign wannabe hormone.
Well, what are those? So there's non-bioidentical hormones
Correct.
out there?
Yeah, and so the reason hormone replacement got a bad rap was because this gigantic study that was done, the Women's Initiative study, and it was 30,000 women, and a lot of them already had the study has been recently debunked, but it really made a lot of providers be very afraid of hormone replacement. And what was being prescribed was Primpro and Premarin, which are both non-bioidentical forms of estrogens.
So where do they come from?
Different sources.
Don't they come from pigs and horses and stuff?
There's some horse.
So you're taking horse
yes.
hormones. Can't
So
be healthy.
It resulted in, the study showed that it resulted in strokes and blood clots and cancers.
Oh, was that
and it was discontinued? It had to be stopped because, it was so
But
unsafe.
then you said it was debunked.
It was debunked because a lot of the women, it was debunked in the way that we can't take the information from that study and apply it to bioidentical hormone replacement.
So
It's
was
totally
that when
different.
like you hear or you read on your that there was a high risk of stroke by taking the birth control pill?
Yeah,
That
so
was the
birth
same.
control is non-bioidentical.
Oh.
And so
What kind of hormones are we? Is that horse hormones?
synthetic progestogen like lookalikes.
Just made in a
Just
lab,
chemical.
or
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Interesting. Is there any such thing as a bioidentical?
No, but that would be like
birth
an
control?
amazing. That would be amazing if.
But
we could
can't. But you
create that.
prescribe individually all
Uh-huh.
those things. Why can't you just combine it together and make it birth control?
It doesn't have a high enough dose to control it. So the birth control, what it does is sort of hijacks your brain and your ovaries into thinking that you're pregnant, so you're not ovulating. And then when you pull you take your placebo week of
Mhm.
sugar pill, and then you have a withdrawal bleed. It's not like a real period.
Right.
It's just coming off the hormones.
Can I tell the story about the other day what I told the kids when they asked me about can you choose when they get pregnant?
Yes.
So my kids, we were in the car and my daughter's like, can you choose how many babies you're going to have? And I was like, well, sometimes.
Not if you're Tracy.
Yeah, I was like, some people can time, I've told you about a period. Like some people can time their periods because that's when you know that you can get pregnant.
Too
And
close,
she's
too
like,
close, Shayna.
I know. So she's like, and you need the daddy to do that. And I was like, well, yeah, that's the fertilizer. And then she was like, so the daddy then and the mommy decide when they're going to make the baby. And I was like, yep. And then they make it through magic. And that's where I stopped. And they stopped asking. They were fine with
They
that.
were like,
So I'm
Everyone's
gonna-
fine with
believe ya.
magic. Yeah.
I mean,
I
it got
love
as
it.
far as fertilizer and turned to magic.
That's hilarious.
How old is she?
She's 8.
Awesome.
I just wasn't ready for that.
No, not
No.
ready.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend then for birth control?
So it's a
Pray.
hard one because, again, there's not a lot of really healthy options. Obviously, you want to support the patient in preventing pregnancy. And so you just educate her about the different options and you sort of guide her and partner with her to make the decision based on her personal preferences. And so we do place a lot of IUDs. The non-hormonal copper IUD is a good fit for a lot of people. It can increase the flow that you have and sometimes cramping in some women. And so just have to take in all of those
And
different...
how does a piece of copper
work?
Yeah.
So essentially, it's inserted into the uterus and sort of sits close to the fundus, and it just makes the uterine cavity inhospitable for sperm implantation. So
Like the semen smell the copper.
They're
And they're
like,
like, ew.
They're like, this is a nasty bar. We're out.
Yeah.
like-
and it's very effective. It's like 99.
Is it really?
Something effective.
That's so wild.
That's crazy. I mean, how did someone figure that out, by the way?
Yeah,
I
right?
don't know.
Like, how can we make the uterus inhospitable to sperm? And then how do they study that? Like, just squirt sperm at
But
something
nobody
and see if
thought
it,
ever.
repels?
Nobody thought about how to make the sperm inhospitable in my goddamn uterus. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
Well,
exactly.
of course
We
not.
didn't talk
Yeah,
about
a
that.
condom, which still ruins it for you.
It ruins it for
Yeah,
everybody. Let's be honest.
Well, no, sure, but
Yeah. So
What do you think of the Nutrafol?
oh yeah, let's
Oh,
talk about
let's see.
Nutrafol.
So I talk about Nutrafol on this podcast a lot.
because she loves
So-
it.
I
Do you
take
know what
it
it
for
is,
my
Sarah?
hair because
Okay.
I felt like I was losing my
feel
hair.
like I've heard of this through our
Well, now it's going to be in
patients.
your Facebook feed.
Okay.
For
It's gonna be in
sure.
all
It
of your
will
Facebook
absolutely.
feeds.
Yeah, right? My phone is listening right now. Okay, so it does have collagen. That's another big trend right now. I don't have anything against collagen. I think that it's
More,
good
please.
for
More collagen.
hair. Yeah. So vitamins A, C, D, biotin, iodine. So they're sort of so the last 3 of the minerals are all really important for thyroid support, which is a lot of time when women start losing their hair, that's the first thing you want to check is making sure that their thyroid's good. And one of the best ways to support the thyroid is by iodine, zinc, and selenium. So that's, I think, a good move. Everyone's deficient in vitamin D. Why not? Biotin is super important for hair, nails. And then when you get down into the synergen complex,
The adaptogen synergen.
yes.
Yes.
So
Synergen, another
It's
fake
just
word.
Ooh.
like Isogenics. Made by Isogenics. She
Oh.
finds it now. We're like, what?
Oh, she's saying interesting.
Yeah,
she said
so
interesting.
they're this is like such a combo. It has like all of
I take
the
it.
points.
I feel like I'm taking a multivitamin, and it's also
So saw palmetto.
Yeah.
So anytime you buy that by itself, it says for prostate health. So I
I have an
do
excellent
recommend
prostate.
it. Yeah. So women do not have prostates.
Oh,
But
good to know.
I recommend it a lot in women because it does help prevent the conversion to DHT from testosterone. So it can sort of lower androgen levels. So that can potentially lead to hair loss and acne. And so that's why that's in there. It's pretty good. Vitamin E. And then some amino acids, which are some of my favorite things to take, which are the building blocks of protein. So L-lysine, which really an important amino acid for skin. So anyone that has herpes and gets cold sores, it's like curative.
Yeah, that's what someone. I had a cold sore, and someone
yeah.
DM'd us and told me to take a lysine.
Yeah,
This is our
1,000
life, by the way.
milligrams 3 times a day.
You
It
do?
works really well.
No, wait, what do you do?
1,000 milligrams of L-lysine for a cold sore, 3 times a day, and it will. knock it out.
Boom.
Our life is such that the world
Everyone
knows
knows I have a
Tracy
cold
has a cold
sore.
sore, and they're DMing her vitamin
Well, I
recommendations.
was on stage. I was like, if I don't just say it, everyone's going to be like, what's that on her lip? It was real bad. But I don't have them often, y'all. It's just, I don't know where it came from. I know exactly where it came from. High cortisol.
That's true.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay.
See, it all boils
all
down
comes-
to the foundations right there.
That's right.
So the other things, it looks like there is some anti-inflammatory properties and some
Inflammation.
antioxidants. So resveratrol is an antioxidant. Black pepper and turmeric we talked about being very anti-inflammatory, and then capsaicin, which is like the spicy piece of like a hot pepper. I'm guessing that also facilitates the effectiveness of the curcumin, which is the turmeric. So I think that's a good combination of things.
And how do you know if that's all good quality?
Well, that's the thing that you kind of have to be responsible
I mean,
for.
the packaging's real pretty, so it must be fine.
right?
They actually downed their packaging. They actually took about $10 off because I think their
I like
packaging was
that.
so expensive that they
I think
finally
that
kind of
that's-
made this glass bottle and put just a paper label on it because it was like real fancy and
Oh.
everyone was complaining.
Have you noticed a shift? And so for hair, what I say to patients is like, it's several phases that hair goes through. So it does take time. So like 6 months.
Oh yeah.
Within 6 months, you should notice that the hair is no longer falling out.
Mm-hmm.
If this is assessing the root cause of why the hair is falling out. And then you should notice that hair growth is occurring after that period of time.
Oh yeah. No, I did. In 3 months,
Awesome.
I was like, something's happening. In 6 months, my hairstylist was like,
Much
look at
better.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
So cool.
I think her periods have been better.
And
As-
Tracy thinks my
as her
periods have
wife.
been better. And Archie's going to try to get Nutrafol to sponsor this podcast.
I think they should. I think
I
Um,
love them.
Okay, so back to cortisol then,
Yeah.
because that's another like buzzword right now that everyone's talking about.
Is that a
I think
hormone?
when I was like in high school and had a television in the home where I lived, I would like see commercials about like belly fat and cortisol.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Do you remember
really?
those?
Are they
No.
related? They are related, right?
Yeah, they like elevated cortisol sort of leads to this like inner tube around your waist essentially.
Yeah.
And so, it's just like that stressed out, burnout, eating fast food sort of
Pump and dump life.
Well, another thing that adds to an inner tube around your waist would just be having children. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's true. But cortisol is related to belly fat. That's true.
Yes, but
Fact or
so
fiction?
you need cortisol, but you don't want too much of it. But you need it for like acute cases of stress, like
When you're being chased by a bear.
yeah, exactly, which has happened to me, and I'm glad that I had enough adrenal function to have cortisol and like run the hell away from
I'm
it.
sorry. You've been attacked by a bear?
Not attacked,
Chased.
but just like I was running at dusk or along the river trail in Telluride where I used to live, and I looked up, and like when you're running, everything's kind of blurry. I was like not focused. I was just running, and I saw a bear, and he was just right there, and I turned around and ran, and which is probably that's not good
I think
bear
you're supposed to stay
safety,
still.
but cortisol was effective.
Yeah,
And
where like everything
adrenaline-
stands up on your arms and like all the hair
Yes.
stands up on your
Like
arms.
when a mom lifts a car off of a baby, like is that cortisol?
Same.
So, because we always said that was adrenaline.
Yeah, so it's a combination.
Okay.
And that's produced also by the adrenals.
Okay, so cortisol, if you have too much of it on it, you're like your life is too stressful, either with kids or work or kids and work
Yeah.
and all that. You're noticing extra belly fat happening. How do you? I mean, I don't hate it, but it's a little irritating when people are like, manage your stress. Like, sometimes that's not
so
really
hard
possible.
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, in that just as a basic thing, ashwagandha root would be perfect for that, and acupuncture. So acupuncture is an alternative therapy that we offer at Sound Clinic through Dr. Lindsay, and essentially it automatically, you have no choice in the matter. It sort of puts you into that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system mode. And so if you do it once a week, like it's like a scheduled nap or scheduled, like you have no choice, you're gonna drop into this sort of meditative
I
zonk
hate
out.
acupuncture so hard.
Oh, I
needles.
love it.
As soon as they put that first one in my ear, I'm like, nope, 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 nope. Get it out, get it
Really?
out. Can't do it.
Have you had it not auricular, but just
I've
like
had
in
it
your body?
just on my. I had a knee issue years ago in New York and had a dude do it. I've had
Yeah,
it. I can't do it.
Yeah. Was it dry needling or was it acupuncture?
No, it
the
was
knee thing?
acupuncture, and I don't know
Oh.
why. Maybe my nerves are more sensitive. I mean, I know
Yeah.
I do have
It's
a low
definitely
pain threshold, but
It's not for everyone. I do have people that have aversions to it.
people love it. Who
But
love
for
I
it.
the
love it.
I love
When
it
they
so
stick
hard.
it in your third eye,
Oh,
that
God.
one
I
right there is
know.
like the best one. And I actually like the ear. It makes that little pop sound
Oh
when
God,
they
I'm
stick
gonna
it
die
in.
if you
Yeah.
think about it. Ugh.
I've
But
done
I've also
training with
had back
auricular.
acupuncturists, and it hurts, and that'll set you back for life. Now I
And
have a high
maybe-
threshold for pain, so I'm like, I deserve it. But like, it's not.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to hurt at all.
Yeah, it's a lot of the time you can't feel it at all. Like
Oh, I feel it. I'm like
yeah.
it.
It might have
Oh.
been the knee. I would maybe recommend doing something other than like a specific like joint issue, because that's not typically, I mean, I'm sure for some people acupuncture is helpful for those sort of things, but I think it's of it more as like just like a stress reducer. So it can support digestion, can support mood, energy levels, and it's
Cortisol.
And it just kind of sets you into
Inflammation.
that inflammation.
Right.
It sets you in that meditative state, and that just helps your body just regulate itself.
Yeah, so I feel like personally what it does for me is like I will have monkey brain, and I will just like be going like all the thoughts in my brain, like just not stoppable. And then no matter how hard or like how crazy the monkey brain is, it'll just be like a light switch, like ba-dunk, and I'll like be snoring.
Oh, that's what it's like for me when I take a hit off my vape pen.
Well, there you go.
There you go. So
There we
that's a
go.
good way to reduce cortisol. What if you can't make it to an acupuncturist like ever?
Meditation is a really awesome, very free technique that's incredibly helpful, and there's tons of research and evidence that shows the effect that it has on your biometrics, reducing blood pressure, reducing heart rate, improving mood, increasing GABA. When I was an ICU nurse in Alabama, I mean, people were like coding and crashing, and it was like 3 really sick people at all times. And I would just walk down the hallways and meditate, and it was very helpful.
Wow.
So to review, let's go back to the foundational
Yeah.
things that
Mhm.
we should focus on the most in integrative medicine.
So clean nutrition, trying to eat a variety of foods sort of in a rotational way. So like not eating the same exact food every day, trying to eat whole foods versus processed foods. Thinking about eating organic when you can, and for the foods that are known to be more pesticide ridden. And then
And how do you feel about
healthy
carbs in that scenario?
I think depending on the individual, so some people really need it, like athletes need a lot of carbs, right?
Yeah.
And so there's different scenarios. I think for the most part, people can do really well in getting, their carbs through veggies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you suggest like lay off the pasta.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you are in Italy and you have like a really amazing handmade pasta and delicious cheese and amazing wine, then you should just go for it like hard. But here on the regular basis from like, the store bought.
And by in
Stuff.
Italy, she meant like Friday nights where you're making Italian food with your family.
Playing
Right?
a Spotify
Hey,
playlist.
Yeah.
I think that in moderation, I think because of the spiritual goodness that preparing food with family has, then it can
Yeah.
sort of, have a benefit from that route. So I think
Agree.
I'm about moderation. So, like, I don't think you need to be stressing all the time. Stressing about what you eat is stress.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so,
So healthy
I encourage
food.
like meal prepping, trying to organize yourself for the week.
So that you're
eating
not
mainly whole foods.
so you're not just like throwing a pizza in the oven and
Right.
Right.
Like
Well, that
doing all
makes
the
sense.
convenient stuff. And then, so nutrition, I would say, is probably number one, and sort of competing with stress reduction and management.
Can we talk about we have just a little bit of time. What about this whole gluten-free
Yeah.
fad and truth? I mean, I know there's a lot of people who actually do have an
Yeah.
allergy, they say, to
Celiac,
gluten,
yeah.
celiac.
So
Is it overblown? Is it not?
I think, again, I just talked to the individual. A lot of people come and want specific food sensitivity testing. We do have that available for the person that really wants it. I think that it's pricey and the validity of the testing is a bit questionable depending on the lab. And I think if a person feels bloated and gross and fatigued when they eat a thing of pasta, then they probably shouldn't eat it. And I do think that a lot of people, there are people that have celiac that need to avoid it completely.
And why do you feel gross and fatigued after you eat a thing of pasta?
It could be yeast in your gut. It could be like the
Inflammation.
microbiome.
Always comes back to the yeast, you guys.
inflammation. And so, yeah, I mean,
Inflammation.
even a practitioner in our office who is gluten-free went to Europe recently, and she did not have any reactions to any of the glutinous
So
food.
it's our
I
wheat
think
that's the way it's grown and
perhaps
sprayed
maybe
and-
it's the pesticides. I don't know. It's mysterious, but I just say listen to your body. You're your own expert in your body, and follow like what it's telling you. Like it's sending you these signals for a reason, and just listen to that. Don't torture yourself and like eat shit that makes you feel awful.
Sure, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So if women, do you think everyone should like see if their hormones are balanced, or do you think only do it if you're just really feeling like crap, or do you think everyone feels like crap generally and they don't even know it because we just kind of accept it as our way of living?
I think that all those scenarios exist. I don't think that everyone needs to have their hormones checked. I think that working on those foundations of health, and if they're still feeling poorly, then let's check the hormones. Then let's, look into genetic testing or your estrogen metabolites. So
Okay.
it's like not, I think a lot of people have normal hormones.
That's
It's-
nice to hear.
But it is good to know how important those hormones are
They're
in
so
our
important.
day-to-day, sleep control, stress
Mood.
control, mood control,
Muscle mass, weight, bone health, brain health, breast health, vaginal health, everything.
Inflammation.
inflammation,
Anxiety.
Inflammation. And then, so what do you talk about? Obviously, you're pro ashwagandha.
Yeah,
What else,
That's
like-
just my favorite little herb.
Okay, well, that's easy enough. Like, what are two other things that we should like generally implement? I mean, you said, I know you've told me this before. We've talked about it, like vitamin D. Everyone should take vitamin D.
Yeah, that's so the basic supplements that I would recommend, and I don't recommend people taking them all the time. Again, like let's be real, like your body doesn't have so much deficiency that you need to be supporting these things 24/7. I really encourage patients to have like holidays from their supplements, because again it's like stressful to take a handful of stuff every day, and have to have like a granny compartment for all of your things. And so like
you've
take
all
a break.
seen Tracy's pill box out at the restaurant the other night.
Well, we know who to thank for that pill box, by the way. She's sitting right here with headphones.
Yeah, so the basic supplements, vitamin D, I would say 99% of people, I mean, that's not accurate, but a lot of people have very low vitamin D. And I quit testing it because they're low unless you're on it, right? And it's really hard to really get your vitamin D level up to a level that's dangerous. So vitamin D is good. Fish oil, a really high quality fish oil that provides you with EPA and DHA, is sort of a basic thing. a probiotic. The technology has sort of come far away with probiotics. I think rotating a probiotic is important. Taking time away from probiotics is important. Eating fermented foods that have, probiotic properties is important. And then a good high quality multivitamin and or mitochondria support, which is like a multi that has some other cofactors that help your body support ATP levels or energy.
Sarah,
Wow.
thank you.
Thanks. Are you going to bill us?
Thank you guys.
We've wanted to have you on this podcast forever
Forever.
because you're so knowledgeable. And gosh,
I know. We could keep talking.
we have so many questions.
I
We're going to have to
know.
have you back another
Yeah,
episode.
we do.
We can do it.
I want to know what it's like to be a mom who's like treating sick people. I can't imagine the terror, but we'll discuss that at another time.
Okay.
Just gonna leave that hanging.
And right on that note. Oh
No,
my
it's-
God, your
it's
job
fun.
and the terror. Thanks for coming, Sarah.
Love
My
you.
job is
Bye.
awesome. It's really, I think practicing functional medicine makes me feel just really good about being a provider. I think people feel better when you're listening to them, when you're trying to prevent illness, when you're assessing root cause, and it makes you feel better about the work versus writing prescriptions.
Well, no matter where you are, look for a place that specializes in functional medicine because now you've seen how knowledgeable people like Sarah are. And if you're in Denver, check out the Sound
Go see
Clinic, y'all.
Sarah.
Yeah, come see us.
Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you guys so much.
Hey, breeders. By now, you've heard us talk about a million times about our private Facebook group, Band of Mothers. If you have not joined us, please do. It is a really awesome space. It's been a very safe space. To be honest, we expected a lot more, we expected some trolling and some negativity, but it's been surprisingly and delightfully friendly and warm and hilarious. Some of the things that you guys have been posting on there has been mind-blowing. And then there's also been some really heartfelt, cool stuff that we've been excited to share with you on this podcast. So Tracy posted, name 3 reasons you love being a mom. And gosh, it's really fun to read through that, especially if you're having a hard day. So I wanted to share some of the comments that we got and these reasons that you all love being moms, because I think that we all can agree on most of them. And maybe it would be a nice way to end this week's podcast. So I'm going to just list these off for you. Making the baby smile just by walking in the room. 2 young kids are a great excuse as to why my house is always messy. I hear you, lady. Realizing you've created a friend for life, which is so sweet and maybe not always going to be true, but it gives me a chance to be the mother I needed. The delight in their eyes when they try something new. My daughter has the funniest sense of humor and makes me laugh all the time. Getting to read all my favorite books from childhood and sharing them with my kids. And then these 2 really hit me hard, and we wanted to share them with you. Learning to love those unlovable parts of yourself by seeing it in your child. And last but certainly not least, I have never felt more love, a sense of importance, or pure joy in any other aspect of my life. So, breeders, thank you so much for sharing those with us. There's a whole thread on them if you all want to contribute or read more. That's what this is all about, because you are all awesome moms, and we're really excited to see what else happens with that group. So follow along, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and we will talk to you next week.